The wind cut through the streets like a knife, carrying the smell of rain and exhaust. People hurried past, collars turned up, eyes glued to their phones, trying not to notice the man sitting on the cracked sidewalk. His skin was dark, his cheeks hollow, his clothes layered but thin, as if they'd been collected from a dozen forgotten closets. In his hands was a piece of cardboard, the letters uneven and smudged but still legible. "Do you also cry from hunger?" He didn't call out to anyone. He didn't shake a cup. His back was straight, his gaze steady, but there was something in his eyes, something that seemed older than the years on his face. Most people averted their eyes, pretending they hadn't seen him. Some glanced, then looked away quickly, ashamed or annoyed. The man didn't move when a businessman in a crisp gray suit slowed to a stop. The stranger's shadow fell over him. They studied each other for a moment, silent, the noise of the city rushing around them. The businessman's brow furrowed. Do you actually cry?" he asked quietly. The man on the ground nodded once, slow and deliberate. "Hunger doesn't always start in the stomach," he said. "Sometimes it starts here," and he tapped his chest. His voice was rough, like gravel being poured from a bucket, but there was no bitterness in it. The stranger didn't drop coins or bills. Instead, he crouched down so they were eye level. "You look like a man who's forgotten what it feels like to be full," he said. "Not just food, life." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The cardboard sign trembled in the beggar's hands, not from cold but from something he didn't want to name. And in that moment, the city seemed to pause. The businessmen stayed there, crouched on the wet pavement, as though the rush of the city had been muted just for them. "What's your name?" he asked. The man hesitated, as if the answer might cost him something. "Thomas," he finally said, his voice barely above the hiss of passing tires. The name hung in the air like a fragile thread. "Thomas," the stranger repeated, as if committing it to memory. "Why are you here?" Thomas looked away, toward the traffic lights blinking in the distance. "I had a son," he began slowly, and for the first time, his voice faltered. "He was all I had. Smart, stubborn, always asking questions. Then, he got sick. Too fast. The doctors said there wasn't much they could do." His hands tightened on the cardboard until it bent inwards. "After the funeral, I stopped showing up to work. Couldn't. My boss told me to take time, but time didn't heal anything. Bills piled up. I lost my job, then the apartment. One by one, people stopped calling." The businessman said nothing, letting the words settle like dust in a still room. Thomas glanced at him and gave a small, bitter smile. "Hunger, it's not just about food. It's about wanting to feel human again. But when you're invisible, you start to believe maybe you're supposed to disappear." The man in the suit shifted, his eyes softening. "You haven't disappeared, Thomas. I can see you." The words were simple, but they landed like a stone in water, sending ripples through the silence. For the first time that day, Thomas blinked hard, his throat tightening. No one had looked at him like that in years, like he was still a person worth knowing. And that realization hurt almost as much as it healed. The man in the suit didn't reach for his wallet. Instead, he extended his hand, palm open, as if offering more than charity. "I have a small repair shop a few blocks from here," he said. "Could use someone who knows the value of showing up, even when it's hard." Thomas let out a short, disbelieving laugh, the kind that comes from a place too tired to trust. "You don't even know me," he said. "I know enough," the stranger replied. "I know you've kept yourself alive out here. That's harder work than most jobs I could offer. And I know you've got a spine, you're still sitting here with your head up, even with nothing in your hands." His tone was matter-of-fact, without pity. Thomas stared at the hand, the calluses on the fingertips, the faint oil stains that matched the smell of the man's coat. He thought about the times people had offered help before, spare change, leftover food, promises that melted by morning. This felt different, heavier, like a door being cracked open just enough for light to slip in. "And if I fail?" Thomas asked quietly. "Then we fail together," the man said, and his lips curved into the smallest, surest smile. Something in Thomas shifted, like a rusty hinge finally moving after years of silence. His fingers twitched before he finally reached out and clasped the offered hand. The grip was firm, warm, and real. Standing felt strange, as if the ground beneath him wasn't quite the same street he'd been sitting on minutes ago. For the first time in years, Thomas wasn't moving for survival, he was moving toward something. The sign slipped from his other hand, landing face up on the wet concrete, the words blurring as the drizzle began to fall. Days turned into weeks, and Thomas showed up every morning before the shop doors opened. At first, his work was sweeping floors, wiping counters, and hauling boxes. He said little, but his eyes missed nothing. He watched how the man, whose name he learned was Jack, fixed broken motors, patched old wiring, and spoke to customers like they were neighbors. Jack never treated Thomas like a charity case, he expected the same effort from him as anyone else, maybe more. In time, Jack began handing him small repairs, replacing a belt in a washing machine, cleaning carburetors, soldering a loose connection. Thomas's hands, once cracked from cold and hunger, began to remember the strength and precision they'd had years ago when he used to fix things for his son's toys. Each job finished brought a quiet satisfaction, a reminder that he could still create something useful in the world. Months passed. Customers began asking for him by name. "Thomas is the one who fixed it right," they'd say. Jack noticed the pride Thomas tried to hide and one evening, after closing, handed him a small envelope. Inside was a paycheck bigger than Thomas had ever imagined earning again. "You've earned this," Jack said simply. Years later, Thomas wasn't just repairing machines, he was running the business. When Jack retired, he signed over the shop, trusting Thomas completely. Under Thomas's care, it grew into a thriving company with multiple locations. But he never forgot the cold street corner, the cardboard sign, or the day a stranger looked at him and saw more than a beggar. And so, he made it his mission to hire those others overlooked, men and women carrying hunger in their eyes, the kind that went deeper than the stomach. Thomas knew better than anyone that sometimes, a second chance was worth more than gold. One rainy evening, long after the shop lights had been switched off, Thomas was walking home when he noticed a young man huddled on the same corner where he had once sat. The boy's hoodie was soaked through, his jeans clinging to his legs. In his lap was a piece of cardboard with one word written in shaky letters: hungry. Cars passed without slowing, umbrellas tilted away as if to block not just the rain but the sight of him. Thomas stopped, his chest tightening with a familiar ache. The air smelled the same as it had all those years ago: wet concrete, exhaust, and something heavier, the weight of being unseen. He stepped closer and crouched down so their eyes met. "Cold out tonight," Thomas said gently. The boy looked up, wary and tired, ready for a coin or a pitying nod. Instead, Thomas asked, "What's your name?" The boy hesitated. "Eli." Thomas nodded. "Eli, I know what it's like to be right where you are. I've been there. And I can tell you, this isn't the end of your story." He didn't offer money. Instead, he offered his hand. "Come with me. Let's get you something more than food." Eli stared at the hand, as Thomas once had, and after a long moment, took it. They walked together into the rain, away from the corner, toward the glow of the shop's office lights. That night, someone else's life began to turn. And as Thomas glanced back once, at the cardboard sign abandoned on the wet pavement, he smiled, not because the hunger was gone, but because hope had arrived, just as it once had for him. Sometimes, the greatest gift is simply seeing someone, and refusing to let them disappear.